Welcome back to the Marianne Hickman Show. This is Marianne, of course, and today we're talking talk tips number 42. How can I be better at speaking off the cuff? Check it out. All right, so this may or may not happen to you, and chances are if you're in the speaking world long enough, this will happen to you. Let me tell you a story. I was backstage at an event. I was emceeing this event. I didn't even have a keynote spot. Just emceeing, which means I'm the glue between all of the speakers, right? I'm the person that takes people off stage, makes sure they get on stage, and really I'm in charge of making sure that the stage is never empty. That's the worst thing you can have at a seminar, is an empty stage, because your audience is like, oh, what are we doing here? So it was my job to bring on the next speaker. And this next speaker, they were not ready. They were not on time. I forget if they were at the airport still or if they were just sick or like sleeping under a table in the back. Yes, it happens. If you're ever at an event, you'd be surprised at how many times you can find speakers sleeping under the tables in the back. But I digress. So this speaker was not ready, and the stage manager, who's backstage, got the headset on, coordinating with AV. They said, hey, guess what? You're up. And I was like, well, I know I'm up, but I don't see our next speaker. Who is it? And they're like, all I got was a shrug. It's just, and so, wait, it's my job. It's my job. So I hop up there, and I know that I have about a 5-minute window for this person to show up. Maybe they're just running late from Uber, or maybe they're in the bathroom, whatever. And I've got, thankfully, these confidence monitors in the front that are showing me what's next and what's on the docket. And as we go 5 minutes in between, 5 minutes turns to 10 minutes, and that turns into 15 minutes. And all the confidence monitor says is next speaker is not ready. They're not ready. And I'm starting to get a little bit aware of the situation, because there's content that I can use to valuably fill time that's meant for 5 or 10 minutes. And then you get thrown in situations where that 5 or 10 minutes turns into 20, 30, and in my case, 3 hours worth of content. And I was left on that stage for 3 hours for the entire segment that speaker was supposed to fill. So the question is, what do you do? And how do you speak off the cuff? Well, I'm going to teach you how to do this today. But I also have to tell you that a lot of the system comes back to getting the reps. Here's what I mean by that. I can give you this system, and you can watch this on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast, and you can take this system and you can practice it, but nothing will give you as much expertise as speaking on stage as often as you possibly can. So I'm just going to tell you right now, if you want to get better at speaking, speak more. If you want to get better at lifting weights, you're going to lift more. If you want to get better at speaking, you're going to speak more, which means take as many opportunities as you can. In fact, here's a challenge for you. Before you go to bed tonight, go live on your favorite social media channel and just speak. Fill the air with value for 2 minutes. That's it. Just practice that. And if you can do that 50 times in a row, and if you're going to squish it in, I'd say do it in 2 weeks. If you can put 50 2-minute lives off the cuff in for 2 weeks, that will train you for when the moment comes on stage, not if the moment comes on stage, but when the moment comes on stage, that you're going to be handed the mic with no apparent time frame, and you've got to fill it, but not just fill it with value. So let me give you some tips here. I heard once from Joseph McClendon this amazing lives in my head rent-free phrase that says, people never rise to the occasion. We always fall to our highest level of preparedness. Think about it. It violates the laws of physics and violates the laws of entropy that things just magically get better unprompted. You know, if a tree is going to grow, it's going to require soil, it's going to require rain, it's going to require sunshine, and it takes work over a long period of time for that tree to grow. I don't know if you've ever visited the redwoods over in California, but those things are massive, and they've been around, some of them longer than our country's been around, if you can believe that. But they didn't become massive and huge and awe-inspiring overnight. It took time, and it took consistency with the nourishment, and it took effort. So the fact that we are awe-inspired with these things means that these trees have been preparing, if you will, for years, centuries, many of them, to become as awe-inspiring as they are. So if you want to learn how to speak off the cuff, like I mentioned before, you've got to get the reps in. And in fact, that first tip that I gave you, that first challenge, that's key number 1, is get the practice in. But I'm going to give you a little bit extra. Practice for 2 minutes. Get familiar with what 2 minutes feels like. Then practice for 5 minutes. Get your body and your voice familiar with what 5 minutes feels like. Then do it for 10, then do it for 15, then do it for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Get your body familiar with the concept of time. Time, I swear, it warps differently when you're on stage. So get familiar with how time feels on stage by going live. Because if you're prepared with how the time feels while you're on stage, then confidence monitor or not, you're going to have a good feeling of how long do I need to fill the time, and not just fill the time, but fill the time with value. Because you know, we've seen it. We've seen when people just get up on stage to be the glue and fill the time, and we're just waiting for the next speaker, and we don't know when they're coming, and we get up and go to the bathroom, and we lose them. They lose us as the audience members because they're not filling it with value. And that's tip number 2. The way to fill the time with value. Now, this may be in the case of, check it out, you're on at an event and you're doing what I did. You're filling the time before the next speaker shows up, and you are just suddenly given a keynote. But you might also be called on in a room. This happens to me often when I'm in a room and I know the event producer. I often get called up to speak on the stage, especially when it comes time to do that call to action. And I wasn't told I was going to be there beforehand. I wasn't told that I was going to be giving a keynote, or much less doing the call to action for the entire event. But now I am, because I'm off the cuff. And when those moments come, I want to focus in on this concept of just filling time. It's a nice way of saying wasting time. Here's how you utilize time instead of wasting time. Do not be afraid to poll your audience. Don't be afraid to interact with your audience. Don't be afraid to get questions from your audience. Don't be afraid to get what did you come here for answers from your next audience. When you're up on stage, the best way to give real value to the point where the audience is like, you were the reason I came to this event. Do you know how many times I get that? You were the reason I came to this event and I didn't even know. I was sitting at dinner the other night, and Carrie, if you're listening, hello, my love. We were sitting at dinner the other night at a restaurant, and someone next to me at the table said that they were in town and they recognized me. And I was flattered, of course, because I'm not that huge of a name yet. I'm not like Madonna or Cher. People don't know me by just my first name yet. But she looked at me and she's like, "Are you Marianne?" And I was like, "Yeah," we connected. And she said that she had been coming to events over and over and over again. And she said the sweetest thing to me in a text. We exchanged numbers. She said the sweetest thing to me in a text after we, went home and she was going back to her hotel. She said, "I didn't know it." I'm paraphrasing. "I didn't know it, but you were the reason I went to that event in the first place." Oh my gosh. I don't remember what I said, but apparently she and her husband were so touched by it that they made a point to tell me years later, after just meeting in a restaurant. And that's because when we rise to the highest level of our preparedness and we increase that highest level of preparedness, that's real value. When people give you unsolicited feedback, that is just an indicator to you that you're on the right track. You're doing the right things. You're living in your ikigai, this principle that I talk about all the time. So I want you to get with your audience. Ask them, why did you come here today? We all have one thing in common, don't we? Why did you drive, fly, walk, swim, jog to be in this room today? Why did you turn on this podcast today? Why did you come to this room? Tell me why you're here. And you get raises of hands. And you repeat that. And if you have a whiteboard, you write that down on your whiteboard. And you help the audience understand why they're there. And then you go above and beyond and say, how will you know when you got what you came for? A lot of the times people say, "Oh, I came here for more connections. I came here for more financial freedom if it's a financial event. I came here to be a better entrepreneur. I came here to be a better mom." All of these things. I call this potpourri language. When it's language that's so flowery and smells so good, and these are all good things, but nobody really knows what it is, right? If I came here because I want to be a better mom, how am I going to know? At the end of the day, before I go to bed, how am I going to measure? How am I going to know that I was a better mom? I'm going to lean into this with my audience. When they raise their hand and I ask them why they're here, and this is what they tell me, I lean into this and I pick at it and I ask these questions. How will you know when you've connected at this event? Is it because you met 5 people? Is it because you met 10 people? Is it because you exchanged phone numbers? How will you know at the end of the day when you go home and you're able to check in and say, did I become a better connector? Did I become a better mother? How will I know? Well, I have this checkbox that says I did this thing. And so now that is a measuring stick for me becoming a better person, whatever way I was trying to do by coming to this event. And then once you get to know your audience well enough, you're going to have a conversation with the audience and put them to work with the training that you have done. You can have them journal. You can have them turn to their neighbor and share. You can have them magnify this. And whoever the next speaker is going to thank you because the audience is now primed and ready for their content because they know exactly what they're looking for. So let me tell you what happened when I got put on the stage for 3 hours. Honestly, I was honored. We clamor for speaking engagements, especially early in our speaking careers. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, so this is great. It may seem like I want to panic right now, but no, I was just given another speaking opportunity, which is fantastic. So I did exactly what I told you. I polled the audience. I asked them what they were there for. I started to detect some themes, and I started to detect some common patterns, which makes sense because the event had this theme and this pattern. So as I got this information from the audience, now I'm able to shift what they said they need as far as content into the Keynote framework, or what I like to call the signature Keynote formula. It's a blueprint, in other words. I've written a book on this. You can go grab it, mariannehickman.com/free gift. You can go download this. This is a 10-step blueprint. Now that I know what the audience wants, because I've trained long enough, I can take the topic that they told me that they need, and I can insert that topic into the 10-step framework. And now I have my signature keynote, and I can use that for next 45 minutes. I can use that for the next hour. I can use that for the next 3 hours if I need to, and I can cycle through this formula. So let's just say I'm at an event, and it is an event for moms learning how to be better mothers. And if I am left on that stage and I need to speak off the cuff, or maybe I'm in the audience and the facilitators are like, oh my gosh, you need to come speak on this. Can you hop on for 20 minutes? I know exactly what to do. If I've been listening to the audience and I've been, listening to the other speakers and they tell me that their needs, I can come with a pretty educated guess. If I haven't, I'm going to pull the audience and use some of the time to do that. And then let's just say at this event for moms that they tell me, I want to connect better with my children. Now I have some measurables. How am I going to measure connecting better with my children? Okay, well, maybe that's investment of time. Maybe that it's an investment of words of affirmation. Maybe I can lean on my training of the 5 love languages from Gary Chapman. Maybe I can lean on this training. So I'm going to keep pulling my audience until I know exactly what framework I need to use to fulfill the topic. Now I'm going to go into the 10-step framework. Now, chances are I've already introduced myself. Chances are I've already given my credibility, or maybe my MC has. And now it's just time to go right into my story. I'm going to take their topic, the audience, what the audience said that they wanted, and I'm going to tell my story around that topic. So I would say in this instance, listen, I've been a mom of 6 kids, and I know what it's like to not be able to spend as much time as I want with them. I know what it's like to compete with the clock for work and for driving schedules and for all of these things. At the end of the day, not know if you left an impact of your kid. You feel like you're roommates with them, that you don't even know them, that you've kind of they're just there. And then one moves out and you're like, oh my gosh, did I do everything that I could have? Did I teach everything I needed to teach? Are they going to be a fully well-adjusted, contributing member of society? I know what this is like. And let me share with you the top 3 things that I did to become a better mother. Number 1, I spent time with my kids. When I'm at my best in motherhood, I'm carving out specific time, alone time with each kid. Whether it's a mother-son date, whether it's a girls' night, whatever it is. In my best mothering moments, I'm spending one-on-one time with my kid, doing what they want to do. Okay, so then I go into these 3 steps. I'm going to teach the audience what I know about the topic using my own story, and then I'm going to lean into a proper call to action, whether that call to action is an assignment for them or whether that call to action is a resource that happens to match my content and flow easily into their next steps. And then I'm going to close and bring it on to the next speaker. If I don't know when the next speaker's coming up, then I put the audience into a partner activity. I say, you're going to be given 3 minutes. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to turn to the person next to you and you're going to share with them what you're going to do tonight before you go to bed. And then when they're done, you're going to swap and the other person's going to go. I use that time, by the way, to go backstage. I'm going to check in with my stage manager. How are we looking on our next person? Where are they? Has their flight arrived yet? Do I need to keep going? And if I do need to keep going, I collect more information. I ask the audience, what are you learning? What are some shares? And we just interact with each other and have a conversation. When I'm having a conversation with someone, I don't know about you, but when I'm really interested in them, I don't even notice the time go by. I'm really just interested in them, curious, and I want to hear more about them. And that's what speaking is. We're not speaking at them. Like my friend Jason Raitt says, we're speaking with them. We're speaking with people, not to them, not at them. And that's all you're doing is having a conversation. When you think of it that way, it takes all of the difficulty, gets rid of it. Listen, I hope this was helpful for you. Whatever comments you have about speaking, doing your call to action from stage, getting a resource guide built, whatever it is around public speaking and building your business from stage, I want to post your questions in the comments because I want to answer these here for you on our Talk Tips. If this was helpful for someone that you know, send it over to them. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Marianne Hickman here again. Listen, I hope super helpful for you. Maybe you learned something new. Share with me in the comments what was valuable. Or if you have this whole separate question like, hey, I wanted to know about this. I wanted to know about stage fright. I want to know how about my presentation on stage. I want to know about how to dress on stage. Anything that you want to know that's relevant to growing your business through stages, put in the questions. Because guess what? I go through and answer all of those personally. That's not an agency or a VA. That's me going through and looking at your questions because you are who I am here for. So last thing is I want you to get this database. If you haven't gotten it already, now I've got thousands of downloads on this thing, so maybe you've got it, but if not, make sure you go to mariannehickman.com/database. What that's going to do is take you to a page. You're going to input all of your information. We're going to send the database to you. You're going to request access to it. I keep it locked down so I can make sure I get it to just the right people. And you're going to request access. And then once you have that, you're going to go through and apply to podcasts that have the topic that you'd be an expert speaking on. Here's the thing. I get this database updated twice a week. So there's always new stuff in there. And if you're a podcaster, there's even a list of guests that you can have on your show on that podcast. Maybe you end up doing a podcast swap and you grow your audience that way. Regardless, I want you to get it. So mariannehickman.com/database, and we'll see you in the next Talk Tips.